Ads ruining your favourite cycling podcast? Sick of shallow bike reviews? Escape Collective is different. We deliver the content you crave without the distractions. We're member supported, and that means ad-free podcasts, independent and honest reporting, and real conversations within a passionate community. It's a better way to experience cycling media. Join us at escapecollective.com/join.
Hello and welcome back to the Wheel Talk podcast. My name is Abby Mickey, and we are here to talk about women's professional road cycling. I am joined by Loren Rowney.
Ooh, number one today. Good morning, everyone. Or good afternoon or good evening.
You're always number one in my heart. Yeah, good day. And today, a special guest on the podcast, Matilda Raynolds. Tils.
Hi, team. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm in Loren's territory. Well, I'm in her country. It still feels like I'm quite far away. I'm... set the scene.
Whoa. Not territory. You're closer to France. Remember, there's a divide between Flanders and the rest of the country.
So, yes, I'm in West Flanders. I'm on the border of France, just above Lille, in a place called Bizet sort of area. I'm surrounded by about 12 Cervelo bikes living in team accommodation, and I've got my nose right up against the Wi-Fi router, hoping it holds. Probably get nasal cancer. But we're here. We're in the European time zone fighting off the Belgian races. But yeah, excited to talk to you guys.
Oh, and we look forward to hearing about the racing.
Yeah, it's pretty short-lived.
We have a bunch of racing to talk about today, and not just the Vuelta a Burgos, the Women's World Tour race that happened over the weekend, but we'll definitely talk about that. But we also had 2 one-day races.
3. Do not forget about Durango, which was epic.
Should we start with Durango then?
Mm-hmm.
Loren, you actually got to watch Durango. I've been having a taste of what it's like to be an American cycling fan, and trying to watch races over here is not that easy. So tell me what happened. Break it down for me.
I feel like you Americans, it's like the very, very early morning, and then the Aussies have got to stay up super late. So either way, you're kind of screwed. But you were on your mountain bike. You're forgiven. What happened? Super aggressive
That's
race.
True. It wasn't. I don't have the excuse of not being awake because I was out on a mountain bike ride,
which is totally acceptable from my point of view.
No, but there was no live feed of it here.
Ah, well, there you go. I've actually,
and then I couldn't find
finally figured out I do have a VPN subscription, so I've been tuning into Spanish TV lately. Not understanding a word, but definitely just enjoying the racing. I think this race had quite a bit of chatter on the Discord because the standout performance, of course, was from, I'm going to pronounce it as well as I can, Cédrine Herbol from France. She's just a 23-year-old rider, and she absolutely sent it down that descent. It was crazy. Just her skills were just mad. And I really thought that was going to be a win for my rider, again, Evita Music, but she just rode away from them. And they...
Oh my God, wait, you have Evita Music? Damn it. I was going to pick her up in the swap.
No. She's my lifeline at the moment, but it's game over. It's game over with the draft. I lost Elisa Balsamo. It's Tils.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
No, it was a really great race, just super aggressive. I mean, it's almost a week ago now, so the stand-up point for me was just the skills of this rider. And I had to go on to First Cycling to have a little bit of a look at her season, and she's been super consistent this year. Lots of top 10s. She had a really good performance at Azulia and the Spanish races, a top 20 in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. 5th in the youth classification at Tour of Normandy. So she's been around the mark, and she actually got a win at the Vuelta Femeninas right at the start of the season. So a really good win for that team, for WNT Ceratids. and a fantastic performance from this young rider.
If anyone's thinking, oh man, her name sounds really familiar, that's because she won the youth classification at the Tour de France last year.
That's right.
Which was a huge deal for Certes at WNT. They've signed her all the way through, I think, 2020, or just through next year. I thought it was longer than that, but yeah, they've signed her through next year, and she's definitely turning into one of their star riders at the moment for a team that kind of went through a little bit of a transition process after the Tokyo Olympics. They lost like all of their major riders to either retirement or just move teams, and so they've been kind of rebuilding, and she's coming out as one of their star riders. But last year she had like a hell of a year. She won the French time trial national championship, she won the Tour of Normandy, she won the youth classification of the Tour de France. Was definitely like one of her biggest wins, just being on that stage. And she wore the jersey pretty much the whole race, and it was definitely like her climbing on the Queen stage on the 7th stage last year was really, really impressive. So it comes as no surprise that she would win a race like Durango, because it's a really hilly one-day classic with like two really big climbs in the final like 1/3 of the race, and it's been won by strong climbers in the past. I mean, it's been won by Ashley Moen-Pasio. Paulina Royakis won it that one year when she was having like a breakout season in 2022. This was one of the kind of highlights of her season that year. That was the same year Veronica Ewers got second as well, like when she was kind of breaking out onto the scene. And Van der Breggen and Van Vleuten, Lucy Kennedy won this race. It's one of the favorites for the climbers. One of the only like climbers classics that we have on the calendar.
I think I'm writing down her name for next week when we have that very important podcast.
I need to go back to the drawing board. I was like, oh, I'm going to pick up music. It's going to be great. No, I need to double check. Who's on what team and then figure it out.
I think someone drew up a table, right? Of the top ranking non-drafted riders. So
yeah, one of our amazing members went and made a team of the non-draft picks.
Yes. So we need to scroll back, or someone just tag that post so we can refer to it.
I mean, should we talk about the draft? Because I checked it this morning and Tils has moved her way into second.
Oh, I thought you would have taken the lead by now.
No. I mean, she's close behind you though. She's
fighting
coming.
on those heels. Bloody Demi Vollering.
Lauren, only one of us is moving.
History.
Only one of us is moving, and that's the only thing that matters. Don't worry about when I get there. I'm the one that's moving. So yeah, look, as I said, had to be patient. The stage races are coming, and yeah, as we're about to get into, Demi's just looking really good. But also just I think there was just a vibe around Demi, at Burgos this past week. I don't know if that's an Anna van der Breggen vibe that seems to follow her, but I did notice that she was at the event this week. But yeah, certainly the team's looking good at the moment, but I do need to also go back to the drawing board. I had another win this week, which we'll get to as well. But yeah, the draft, we can talk about the draft all you want, but we can probably move on to Burgos.
I mean, I don't want to talk about the draft, but that's just me. At least I'm still in the top 3.
Don't you have Shabby?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
She's on a great run right now.
She is.
She's had a big season. She seems to have done every race.
Yeah. She's surely having a rest now before the next big block. I mean,
well, yeah, let's talk about Vuelta a Burgos. It was the final race in our spring-ish Spanish block of stage races after Zulia and La Vuelta Femenina, and it really kind of wrapped up this amazing chunk of racing. We talked about it last week about how great the Spanish block was, but man, I love these races back to back. It's so good for the calendar, and it's cool that the same riders kind of get to come back and try again a week later. And I like that the races aren't like week long. I like the 4-stage races. I think it's pretty good, and especially with where the women's peloton is at the moment, any longer, and I don't think teams would be able to handle it. So it's a great building block for the future of the sport. But I think of the 3, Burgos was definitely the least exciting, just because at this point everyone's pretty tired, and there were some unfortunate crashes that definitely impacted the race, especially stage 1. But there was still so much that came out of this race that is worth talking about. And I mean, there was still some amazing moments, of course. Let's start with stage 1. Came down to a bunch sprint, but there was a massive crash in the final 300 meters, and Laura Hentala took the win, which is phenomenal. She's had such a rough couple of years. She was on Trek Segafredo back a couple of years ago. She retired, she had a baby, and then she decided she wasn't done. She came back last year for AG Insurance Sudal, and then moved over to EF Education Cannondale this year, and took her first World Tour win since 2018, I believe. So it's been a long drought for her in terms of wins, and so to take this win was massive for her and massive for the team as well. Another World Tour win for that team after the way that they raced at the Vuelta. They just continue to kind of prove that they are one of the top teams, even if they don't have that license. And so for Lotta, I mean, I had a tear watching her win, knowing what she's been through, and you could just see how happy she was and how happy the team was. But it was definitely off the back of a really heartbreaking crash involving Elisa Balsamo and Sofia Bertizzolo. And for both of them, I mean, Bertizzolo is having this incredible year where she's had some amazing performances, and I think she's only getting better. But Balsamo had this horrific crash last year at Ride London, and it took her a while to come back from that. She ended up, her first race back was the Tour, but she left the Tour early because she just didn't have it and has been struggling a lot since that crash. And I think the crash last year, she broke her jaw and a bunch of teeth running into the back of the team car. And then this crash, she's broken her nose and her hand. The team announced on Monday morning that she's back in Milan, and she's going in for surgery on both her nose and her hand with the same team that did her surgery last year. There's no word on the recovery timeline for her, so no word if she'll be building back to the Olympics. But that's obviously that doesn't matter at this point. It's her health that is the most important thing. But for her, just on the back of the season that she's had, I mean, she had such an incredible spring, and that team loves her so much. And she's obviously proved she can come back from it once, but coming back from a second time is arguably harder. So just really gutting to see Balsamo. And the photos after the crash of Ilaria Sanguinetti, just broken, standing next to Balsamo, were those were pretty hard to look at.
I think it's, as a teammate, one of the most awful things you can experience is watching, because you get close to your teammates. They're not just your teammates. You form quite a bond and a relationship with them. And I don't know if we want to talk a bit about the crash. She did walk away with a concussion, so I think that's a big point to note here. It's not just fractures to the face again and to her hand, but she's got a concussion. So timelines with that, as we know, can be weeks, months, sometimes years for people. Yeah, I found this really heartbreaking after the season that she has had and what she probably was expecting at the Olympics on the track and on the road. So it's devastating.
I couldn't stop thinking about the Olympics as well. And obviously just a year on, it felt like this race was really one of some comebacks and some amazing and some huge setbacks. There were some really big comeback performances, but the setbacks were enormous. I think no matter your analysis, I felt like one of the biggest, topics from this tour was the crashes, were the crashes. I think that I just don't understand rewatching some of the sprint finishes and the way that the barriers were designed and the way that they were lined up. It just makes me so infuriating that safety isn't considered because there's no way those barriers would be the way they were positioned if someone was looking at that from a bird's eye view, thinking, is this safe? Is this safe for 60 women to be coming at this at over 50k an hour? The way the barriers moved in and out in those last sort of even just the 100 meters, surely there's rules around having a straight line. with barriers. And in the end, that's really what, yes, there were decisions that were made that contributed to that moment in the crash, but certainly the contribution there with the barriers was just enormous. And then I think also worth shouting out just a really prominent point that Lucinda Brand made in that race, in her stopping to check if Balsamo was okay, and then also losing 3 minutes in the last 50 meters. However, if she had put a bike down, crashed in that last 3K, she wouldn't have lost any time at all. So just again, just highlighting probably just the need for common sense to be applied to a very simple, issue there.
Yeah, in terms of the, I think we could go back and forth and try to analyze the sprint itself and how that collision happened with Balsamo and Bertizzolo, like whether or not Balsamo was trying to fit through a gap she couldn't and hit her handlebars on Sophia, or if it was something having to do with Bertizzolo's front wheel, because there was, like, depending on the angle, it's really hard to tell what happened. But I don't really care how the crash happened. I feel like the more important point is that with 500 meters to go, the barriers were 3 lanes wide, and with 300 meters to go, the barriers were 2 lanes wide. And that just can't happen in the final 500 meters of a race. That the barriers narrowed that much is super dangerous, and especially Balsamo would have had ample room 100 meters earlier or less. And so it was really, really dangerous the way that the finale was set up, and a really, really dangerous the way that the barriers were set up for stage 3 as well, the stage that Wiebes won. That also had a huge crash with 2.3 kilometers to go-ish. So there was a ton of riders that weren't there when they went into that finale. And had there been more riders, like you tweeted about this, Tils, that would have been catastrophic. I think it was you. I'm almost positive. You have really great tweets. If anyone doesn't follow you, they really should. You've got great insight.
No, go into hibernation. It's not worth it. But yeah, I think it's all, it's just all so many contributing factors, and that's what happens to a crash. It's so many small decisions that lead to these sliding door moments of crashes. It's 100 different decisions that were made just before that moment that led to that outcome. But I think it's just so important for the organisers that they are taking absolutely every possible, measure they can, because, it's at times I feel like there should be up for liability. The career ending crashes, what it's now costing Balsamo. Yes, I know, how do you prove it was them? But come on, like, it's just, I just don't think our lives are being held with enough value. Like, it's just, we're not monkeys in a circus. Like, it's just becoming absolutely ridiculous and almost like accepted that this is just a part of cycling. It's not. It doesn't have to be.
If you compare this crash to the crash at Antwerp Port Epic, actually, like, there was a huge pile up there where riders hit the barriers there, and the barriers stayed together. Like, one of the massive things with this crash with Balsamo and Bertizzolo was that the moment that they hit the barriers exploded. There were barriers flying all over the place, and that is what happened in Poland a couple years ago in the men's race, and we saw it again in this race. And it is like, it's such a basic safety point that is like such an easy fix that I just don't understand how it was allowed to happen. And I feel like at some point the UCI or the CPA needs to take this. They need to start implementing those barriers that you like bounce off of that have no feet, that they use in all the Flanders Classics races. Because they're just
should be
so
mandatory.
Much safer.
There should be racers should only be allowed to use those barriers, because at the end of the day, we want barriers to keep the spectators away from the riders. Because speaking from experience, almost 10 years ago, when a spectator leaned over and got too close to me and knocked me off my bike, that's the purpose of a barrier, to try and avoid those moments. Because, okay, with the discussion with Balsamo, I think the gap was big enough. My coach always said to me as a sprinter, you run up the side of the barrier, like it's at your own risk, basically, because, if someone squeezes you and holds you there, then you're stuck. You can't get out. And if you try to push it, then you're risking the chance of crashing. But, like you're saying, those barriers shouldn't move. And the idea of them there is safety, to keep the spectators away. That is the only reason there are barriers.
And the barriers were too, within 500 meters of a finish, they shouldn't change the width of the road. And that's what happened on the first stage. And I'm just gutted for both Balsamo and Bertizzolo, because it's like potentially a season-ending injury for Balsamo. And we don't know a ton about Bertizzolo. The UAE hasn't been as vocal about her injuries as Little Trek sent out multiple press releases about Balsamo.
Is it like a collarbone or something along those lines?
Yeah, broken arm or something like that. Yeah.
Broken arm. Yeah.
But yeah, man, for Balsamo to have her face broken again 1 year in the same year, because it's technically like a week until her
Ride London,
the anniversary of her crash last year. But
I think I don't want. We're going to come back to this topic again, so I'm not moving on it. But I think, as I said, like it was in that same moment, and that is cycling. We saw the amazing comeback there of the winner, but also it was great to see Megan Japstrap was in ninth after having, I think she'd broken her hip. Abby, I know you're quite close to her. And then also Ruby Rose McGannon hadn't raced since the Spring Classics after some crashes there, coming in fifth was a really strong result for her on stage one as well. But yeah.
Yeah, Megan, she's got her eye on the track for the Olympics. So the setback in December, she broke her pelvis avoiding a car during a training ride, and for her, the comeback has been, I think, a bit frustrating. But she's such a positive person in general, and I think she said being back in the races, she was just so happy to be back racing her bike, and you could really tell. And by the end, I mean, she was up there on the third stage as well, and managed to avoid that huge crash on the third stage. And I personally just thrilled to see her back in the bunch, knowing what she is hoping to do later this season. But we will definitely talk about the U.S. Olympic situation at the end of this podcast, because a lot going on there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Let's talk about stage two. Stage two, a short, kind of gradual-ish run into the line, but enough of a climb that a short, like kicker kind of, but it was enough of a climb that Demi Vollering was able to take yet another win and the overall jersey. And it was really FDJ Suez took all responsibility on that climb. I think they're just so, the whole team is just amped about music at the moment, and so they took the pressure leading into that climb and setting the pace on that climb. And then Music was able to finish second behind Vollering, and another incredible ride by Caroline Swinkles, who was able to follow that move by Vollering when she went on the climb. And Music was just a bit off the pace, but it has just the raw power to be able to kind of power her way back. And so yeah, it was an exciting finale.
When someone like Demi does her acceleration, you see Elisa Longoborghini does this really well. She paces herself and rides at her own pace. And that's how she's ended up like in the Vuelta, basically in third position overall. But yeah, it was an incredible race by Swinkles. Again, she's having a fantastic season, great tour season. But initially trying to go with Demi, like you said, Evita was just off the pace, but then she kind of dieseled her way back and went past. So that's always with these, as we get into the longer climbs, like the Giro, the Tour de France, that's one of the things with climbers is just knowing what you can do on a climb and actually racing your own race on a climb. It's like a time trial.
Yeah, I think this was such an interesting stage just in the results, because there seemed to be some strong sprinters or strong riders sort of who were also up there in the top 10. I thought Naomi Rook was a bit more of a sprinter, and she was in fourth. But I think, as you sort of said before, Abby, I think it's a really interesting stage race because some riders who haven't had as big a year are actually able to probably fight a bit longer and fight a bit deeper in these races. It probably flattens out the curve a little bit more in terms of some of the performances. Like even to see, it was great to see Sylvia Persico up there. Obviously, we'll chat about Ella Wiley getting into the white jersey, but even like Maud Erdmann of Visma, she was the Zwift winner a few years ago. Just to see a few names that you haven't seen up there in a race in a stage like this that was won by Demi. It was an interesting top 10 that you wouldn't necessarily try to work out how that had to rewatch it to work out how those names placed there. So yeah, still a good stage.
I think in general as well, it was hectic, the stage. I mean, we didn't get to watch the whole thing, but it was like, lots of crashes again. The bunch was nervous. Again, an aggressive race. The roads there kind of remind me a little bit of like the roads here in Belgium, but the French part of Belgium, like a little bit crappy, a little bit slippery, very narrow. So I was getting those vibes there. But another good stage. But like you said, Tils, it's interesting to go and look at the results and notice that, Demi has obviously had that calmer spring to previous seasons, but she's just come out so strong to be able to win all 3 tours. And that's where we're seeing, like you mentioned, these other names kind of popping up. I want to talk about Lucinda Brand in the 4th stage when we get there, because
first we got to talk about the obligatory Weebus win. Last year she won 2 stages of this race, and I think had the first stage gone a bit differently, it would have probably ended with another Weebus victory. But she took her 3rd stage pretty easily ahead of Clara Caponi and Micah Van der Duyn up there. Finally getting you some points, Loren.
a little bit too late.
No. Clara Caponi though, it was really good to see her up there in 2nd for Little Trek to take on that role and to step out as a lead out and being the main sprinter. I think was a good, I guess, fighting for Balsamo there would have been, a good consolation prize there for them a little bit. I think giving her a little bit more confidence. Again, Megan Jatstrap was in 6th, so yeah, these tours are just really good for opportunities, I think. But again, throw the dice down and it was a really different top 10 almost every day.
I think one of the 2 big takeaways from the 3rd stage were this huge crash that happened inside the last 3 kilometers. I mean, it was massive. Like half the bunch went down basically, and the list of DNFs or DNSs when we got to the 4th stage was so long. And
I think only 90 people started on day 4.
Yeah, 86 people started the final stage, and the DNSs included like half of the DSM Firmenich Post and L team, and Eva van Acht from Visma Lisa Bike, who was in the breakaway on the 3rd stage, a couple of the human powered health riders, some Cofidis riders. Sarah Roy wrote a really poignant post on Instagram about her crash and deciding not to start the final day, how for the riders it's quite hard to make that call to not start a race. So rider will always, and we've said this on the podcast, a rider will always opt to race their bike even if they have, blatant concussion symptoms. And it's not because they're not dumb, they are bike racers, and it really needs to be on the team to make that call. It was a really good post. I will add it to the Wheel Talk newsletter this week. In case you, subscribe to that. You don't have to, but it exists if you're.
No, you should. I'm always surprised the amount of effort that goes into that. It is actually
me too, honestly.
A very good newsletter. That if that is all the cycling media I consumed in 1 week, that would be it. Like it's actually, I don't mean to offend you, but surprisingly good.
Thank you. I think.
And by that you mean because Abby is such a busy person, it's incredible.
Yes.
She pulls that together.
I know the amount of effort it's worth the read. So you're missing out if you don't get it. There you go.
brings you up to speed with
thank
everything.
you so much. That's very, very kind. Yeah, it was a really, really, really big crash. And we already mentioned how it impacted the finale, especially how twisty the final 500 meters were to the line. But it was just devastating to see so many riders go down. Cecilia Tripp Ludwig was in there. There was a moment where we weren't quite sure if Evita Music was in there or if she had made it. When they did the immediate results after the finish, she wasn't in the GC standing, so it was a little bit worrying for a moment in terms of how that would have impacted the GC, which you never want to see. But just never what you want to see. And it was one of those stupid crashes. It was like a huge wide open road, 3 lanes, and just
someone just
dumb
moved.
Happened, and
it looked like someone literally just moved, and then there was a touch of wheels, but just where that person was positioned, right towards the front, that's when you have that like domino effect. Because quite often, if it spreads out across the road, you got nowhere to go.
Lila's wearing her new cowboy boots.
Oh, shit.
That's so cute.
Come and show me Beyonce. I need to. She's gone out of her Taylor Swift era into her Beyonce country era.
She got him for her birthday yesterday.
Oh,
really
so good.
Yeah, stage 4, the final stage of the race was Demi Vollering show yet again. She attacked on the only category 1 climb of the race and was able to basically just ride past Lucinda Brand, who'd been off the front in a 2-rider move, and ride solo to the line 41 seconds in front of Brand, who actually held off Evita Music for second on the stage. And kind of a bummer to think of how that would have changed the GC had the decisions made on stage 1 not been a thing to dock her 3 minutes, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. Evita Music rode in for 3rd, securing 2nd overall, and Caroline Swinkles came in for 4th, Elise Shabby 5th. So in the end, it was Demi Vollering who took her 3rd general classification victory in the last month. Freaking insane. Evita Music was 2nd overall, Caroline Swinkles 3rd, Elise Shabby 4th, and then Shirin Van Anrooy rode into 5th with a really incredible performance on the final day, and she took the youth classification with that, which was the only classification that Demi Vollering didn't win. And I do think that these races need to kind of rethink how they distribute points, because Vollering won the points mountain and overall classification. And you really just want to see other riders on the podium at a certain point. And so I would like races to reconfigure how they distribute points. That would be really nice. But I mean, like, what a ride by Vollering. Like, not only on the final stage and throughout Burgos, but this entire month has just been her proving, nope, I'm right here. Yeah. I didn't miss a beat. I am
unchallenged
better than I was last year. And she's just completely unbeatable. And it was impressive. I feel like she was even more dominant than Van Vleuten of old and Van de Breggen. Like, she's on a whole nother page than those. And part of it might be that, she's the only top rider at these races. Like, she's like, obviously Evita Music, she's really coming up, and watching her progression even in the last month has been unreal. But like, there's a lot of riders that aren't at the race, but it's still just like to watch her just ride away and know that the race is over. And the 4th stage didn't finish on the climb. There was the Cat 1 climb, and then the descent off of that climb, and then a long flat run into the line, and she made up time. And it was just really something to watch.
It's such a difficult season, and I think we forget that every time. We're like, Demi, why aren't you winning, in April? Or March, that she's got the Tour de France coming, she's got world champs, and she's got the Olympics, and there's really not any other rider in the peloton, men's or women's, that we put that type of pressure on or expectation. Yes, potentially Pogačar, but he's really selective about those races during the spring classics that he enters, where we have an expectation if Demi's there that Demi's either winning or leading out Lorena Wiebes. So yeah, I think it's more just around her peak. You know, I think she's come down from altitude and she looks like she's running into it really, really well with her goals for this season. My biggest takeaway was just how beautiful the Burgos leaders jersey is. I would love that design. But yeah, I think, and as I said at the start, she just seemed really happy just in her interviews. And I do wonder, you know, if she goes to FDJ, does Anna van der Breggen go there as well? Like, how does she take Anna and that energy with her? I'm not sure, but yeah, whether that's a part of her being there, I'm sure it is. But yeah, she just seemed a lot happier in Spain, I would say, which we all are. Everyone's happier in Spain than Belgium, aren't they? Or
Hey, they were getting some Belgian weather though. No,
They did. The final stage looked very cold.
yeah.
I don't know. I didn't see them eating cow shit, so I don't think it was Belgium.
And actually, you know, speaking of the leader's jersey, it's pretty rad that they also gave her a vest of the same
Yes.
because that would not have been a thing like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
No,
It was elite.
no.
It was
So that was
yeah.
cool to see.
Yeah. Fix your barriers. Your jerseys are okay.
You win some, you lose some.
Yeah. You're almost there. Burgos. Tick. Let's go.
Done with the Spanish block of races, and we're on to the British block of races. But yeah, I think overall the whole Spanish block was just a treat. I mean, there were some amazing races throughout the 3 stage races and also the 1 days in between. And there was also just like these incredible breakthrough performances that will kind of lead us into the rest of the races this season. And now we've got, you know, Avita Music is hopefully only going to get better before the Giro, and then we'll be able to watch her take that on. And honestly, like going into the Giro, I don't know who can beat her when we get to the mountain climbs there if Vollering chooses to sit out the Giro. So it's going to be just like such an awesome season from here on out. And I think we have so much to look forward to having watched these races.
Yeah, I just think you made such a good point though, Abby, last week, that it would have been great if this led into the Vuelta, potentially, that it wasn't like the peak of the Vuelta and then coming down on the Spanish sort of style classics and tours. But again, I understand the scheduling clash there. But I thought that was a great point though, just in how they could potentially rework this Spanish block. Just petered out a bit, probably.
I do wonder if it's you had riders like Elisa Longo Borghini who had that really big spring. She had that block of altitude sort of halfway through, then came back for the Ardennes and then straight into the Vuelta. So it kind of works well for a rider like that. But then you have the riders that are just targeting basically this block of tours. So then it makes sense to have the Grand Tour at the end, almost building into it. You can bring in a few younger riders for Zulia and whatnot, and just have them there on the ground in case you do have crashes, like the crash with Balsamo or the crash that took out half the team of Post-NL, DSM.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there was like just Maeve and Megan on the on the final stage, just the two of them on the podium to sign in.
Yeah, because the next block of racing, we'll talk about the Belgium races, but the next block in the UK, you're going to see a whole different set of riders. And I would have thought you would see probably Balsamo going there because some of those stages are perfect for her, and she might have even gotten an overall win in one of the tours. But actually, it's an opportunity for Caponi to step up because she's next in line for Trek. For Little Trek.
And she won a stage of Tour of Britain last year.
So I guess she will be primed and ready.
Yeah, we're going into some real sprinters classics coming up, or sprinters stage races coming up. But we'll talk about those in a minute. Let's talk about the 2 1 days that happened throughout the week. And we have a rider who was in the races. So that's pretty exciting.
Some insider information.
It's more amazing that she's here to tell the tale in one piece.
So the first one was in the Netherlands.
Veenendaal.
Veenendaal?
Yeah, Wienendaal. Yep.
Wienendaal.
Mhm.
And the weather on this one was horrendous. Won by Brianna Marcus solo. But as you pointed out before we started recording, she only really slipped off the front of the peloton in the very end.
Yeah, this was my first ever European race 2 years ago. So I had some fond memories where I was sort of 14th. And again, that day it absolutely poured rain at that exact moment. So I think they just need to change the date slightly. But yeah, it's sort of a multi-lapped flat. I opted to not wear sunglasses because I was struggling to see with the weather, and I was so worried that I had pink eye after the race because there's obviously like cow shit all over the road and just dirt. And anyway, so there's just like two really small climbs. We had SD Works there. A lot of Kopecky won it last year. She was originally on the start list, but opted out as she's just come down from altitude. And we had Visma Lisa Bike were there as well. Human Powered Health were there, which we'll get to. But yeah, it's just really one of those really multi-lapped courses where very, very difficult to hold the front. You'll be at the front and then 2 seconds later it's a constant washing machine. But yeah, it was pretty clear it was probably going to come down to a bunch sprint as it usually is. But yeah, with 1 hour to go, it's 130 kilometers. That I've never ridden through such horrific rain. It was just you could not see beyond your handlebars. You were just hoping for the person in front of you really to hold it. And like, as much as I'd like to pretend that, I saw Rihanna Marcus go off the front, she's in my fantasy league. I let her go to take the front, to take the win. Mate, I could not see beyond my handlebars. Like I don't even know if anyone saw Rihanna Marcus move off the front. The rain was that bad and the visibility was bad.
It's not surprising, based on what you said, that Barbara Garishi got second then.
Yeah.
Because, just sounds like her type of conditions, right?
Yeah. Like I was, just hanging with Chantal Black at the back for quite a bit of it. Just trying to, it was just nothing you could do if people braked. Surprisingly, though, the only crashes were really happening on this two small climbs that were happening. It was weird, just with people coming backwards. That seemed to be causing quite a few crashes. And then, in the end, to move up, I took the left-hand side with Human Powered Health and a few Jayco riders. They all look the same with their kits. We're moving up on the left. The SD Works and Visma took the right hand side of the roundabout, and then suddenly Human Powered Health, someone braked, and they were like baby giraffes on ice. The entire team came down, and so just sort of twiddled my way through that crash, and was a few seconds down there on the finish. But it was pretty much just a bunch finish, one of those just classic Netherlands races, really, 1 day races.
Well, I'm glad you got that a little bit of a taste of the classics weather, even though it's May.
Yeah, I think for the team, so I'm riding with Team Bridge Lane, for them to come in and that be their first European race is always a very big shock to the system. Yeah. But they all did really well. They'd only done 2 Camisas before that, and it's just such a ridiculous different level when you're competing with teams who have done the entire Spring Classics and you've been back in Australia riding with 40 girls on a 6-lane highway. It's a slightly different race sensation. So, and then, that was pretty bad weather. And then, 2 days later, we yesterday did Antwerp Port Epic, which is just this incredible mix of a mini Paris-Roubaix and Strade Bianche. So if you're not riding cobbled sections, then you're riding dirt sections. It also had rained, so there was a bit of mud there as well. It would be an incredible classic to have earlier on in the season, just with I think to practice the cobbles and those sections and just how difficult the day was. But wow, we knew we were in for a treat because last year I think only 30 people finished, and we had 145 starters on the start line and 69 finished this year. So I would have seen probably 9 crashes. And look, to be honest, guys, like I just wanted to get through it. And I was someone that, yes, every now and again went to the front, but mostly sat near the back. I was like a Chloe Dygert without the skills, or without the power. I was just, sort of leaving at the edge of the peloton, but leaving that bit enough space to react to just shit going down in front of me. And honestly, there was just so many crashes just with the condition, people's skill sets, and an enormous amount of punctured tires. I don't know what Phoenix Deceuninck tires they're using. They need to swap them out. Their entire team, I think, were struggling with punches. But yeah, absolutely, it lives up to its name. It was an absolutely epic race. But I think also because you have a lot of the second tier teams in there, then it can be more dangerous when you don't have the World Tour teams there, controlling a lot more of the pace and just being, you're far more respectful of those riders. Every time you'd see an SD Works rider near you, you do allow more space, I find. But yeah, happy to finish in 29th. Even though I was in a group there fighting for 12th, but even with that group, God, there was a horrific crash right on the finish line. So it's just, one of those days. But again, the team did really well. We had, two other girls that got through the race just with a lot of incidents. But again, it's just one of those races that's worth fighting on because you just never know what happens. And then, I think we saw Lara
Gillespie.
Yeah. UAE.
The Irish national champion.
Yeah.
Rides for UAE's
which was fantastic. Yeah, and that's why it's such a good opportunity for those Devo teams. And Zoe Baxter was just in a bit of a category on her own. She was really pushing the pace at the front and making quite a big gap as well, and ended up being caught again, and was in that lead bunch and came in second. So, I think we had very different days.
Yeah, so she was riding with the Generation team. So that's pretty cool that, she's gone from, she's obviously World Tour, but riding with those development riders. And even though she's so young, she's so experienced. You'd think she was at least 5 years older, right? The way that she rides. But yeah, how did the young Aussies find the experience? I saw Lucinda. Oh no, she's from ARA.
Yeah, that's right.
But, Lucy was actually up there.
Yeah, Lou Stewart did. She did really well. I think Ali Anderson, we had Hayley Fuller, and more importantly, and Talia Appleton, who's, she's the youngest rider, I think, in the peloton at the moment because she's only just 19 and only just first year out of juniors and doing a race that was 146 kilometers at that distance and on those sort of surfaces just to fight until the end is just, she'll go far in this sport. So it's definitely a name to remember for her to be fighting until the end and not giving up. I think, and these girls still is so hard to feed, so hard to take your hands off the bars to eat, I think, at various times. So did really well. But I did really make note of some of the Canyon SRAM riders. They there was a couple of riders there. I know that they do have some riders representing some of the African countries, and they were just such fighters, like particularly in the Veenendaal race. One of them was there at the back and then came in the top 20. So just didn't give up, which I really admired and tried to tell them as much as well. So some good performances there just from the next tier. But I think, Abby, you've mentioned before just that need for the different tiers and probably where the World Tour, where do they need to be at certain races or not, or how to best make those races work better, more for the opportunity for the next tier that's coming through. So this was a good one because I think a lot of World Tour teams who attended it last year decided to sit out because of the carnage that can ensue.
What are you guys' thoughts on more U23 development teams? I mean, next year we're going to have the first U25 or U23 World Championships. It's going to be U25.
I think the only thing I'd say about that, and this is probably because I'm old, but I think just with some of the women's team, I really like when some of the senior riders have had the opportunity to go back and support the those under 23 riders. I think it's a unique experience to all be the same generation and you see how well they gel. But I also think there's a level of maturity that can support sometimes those teams. I've seen it where it hasn't gone as well, where it's just a team of really young, at times girls, not necessarily feeling like women. Like and I think some of that maturity can just, or unless you have a really, really supportive staff and DS that can potentially just bring some of that in line. That would be my only thing. I think it really would come back to the support network.
I love the development teams that are attached to a world tour team, because I think it kind of comes with the territory that they're going to have that access to the world tour riders and maybe be able to do camps with them, be able to interact with them, or have the more experienced riders. Like, imagine if SD Works had a world tour or had a development team and they had Chantal Vandenbroek Black, who's doing kind of just dabbling in the road scene at the moment, coming back from pregnancy, and isn't doing like the massive races like the Spanish block and stuff like that. And she could be a huge asset to a development team if they had something like that. So I like that. I feel like there are teams in the World Tour that would do incredible things with a development team, and teams that should probably not have a development team. But that's the case, no matter where you're looking, it would be the same on the men's side. It's not like, just some teams are better at focusing on the women's side, or on the top tier team. But I do feel like a lot of the teams that I would want to have a development team have a development team. Like we know about the Canyon SRAM Generation team. They're really good at social media, and they're really good at letting the world know that they have this team, rightfully so. But there are a ton of teams that have development teams that we don't know, that we kind of forget that they have development teams. Like UAE's development team, they don't really get talked about a lot, but I mean, they have some really incredible riders on there. When they absorbed Valcar Travel and Service, that's when they split the team into the World Tour team and the Devo team, and they took a bunch of riders from the Valcar team and put them on the development team. And for Laura Gillespie, who won the race, she's on their development team, but she focuses mostly on the track. She's really, really good on the track. And so for her to not have the pressure of a World Tour team and be able to be on the Devo team, I mean, she's only 23, so it works out perfectly for someone like her. And Phoenix Akunik has a Devo team. AG Insurance Sudal has a Devo team. There are so many teams that actually do have development teams, and I think it's great. I do think that for the men, they have, U23 teams, and that works out fine. But I think for the women, there's no need to put an age cap on it, because we have such a variety of ages that come into the sport late and do incredible things. And there's not so much emphasis on an aged category for the women. There's definitely less U23 races. There'd be really no point in having a pure U23 team that does U23 races, because there's only 3 of them. So I think for the women, having a development team that focuses on development but doesn't limit the age gap, the maximum age on the team, is really important. But I think that that's a now thing. I think as the sport progresses, there will be more young women coming into the sport. And for them, it will be more important to be on a team of their peers than have, an older rider in there that's coming into the sport late. And I think a lot of the times, actually, those riders end up on World Tour teams anyway, for better or for worse. But next year, at least, in terms of the tiers, next year we'll have the pro team tier. So that will be huge for the women and for the teams, and how that fits into the structure when it comes to which teams do which races. But I firmly believe that World Tour teams should not be allowed to compete in certain tiers of races for the development of the sport, and the importance of the riders that are not World Tour getting the
calendar's big enough, right? As well. The calendar is
look at freaking Canyon SRAM. They can't field the full team. They don't need to be sending riders to to be fair, they've had a really rough run of illness, so not entirely their fault, but the World Tour calendar is packed. They definitely don't need to be sending teams to smaller local races.
The way I could see that working is like we were just saying is with these development teams like Backstead, who is a young rider, but she's going and racing with the generation team. I think as a rider nearing the end of your career, let's look at Chantal as an example. She's decided to come back and race again because originally she was going to come back as a DS, but I think she's put a pause on that for this year. She'd be the perfect person to drop into those races, not necessarily competing for the win anymore, but there as experience. Trixie Warwick was really good, and that's why Little Trek actually signed her for the last years of her career to sort of, impart that knowledge and experience on other riders. And it's a nicer way to go out, I think, in a way. I would have liked that if I'd stayed in the sport longer till this age. I would have loved to have done my final year or two actually working with the next generation and not really focusing on results or helping the team leader get results.
Yeah, I think I saw maybe Chantal making her decision maybe not to keep racing at Veenendaal after Veenendaal.
A real-time decision.
Hard.
I was watching her go through that process of, do I want to keep doing this?
I think speaking as a mum, I don't know. I'm not a professional athlete, but you must lose your edge a little bit.
What? Have you not seen Ellen Van Dyke?
I know, yeah.
The exception that defines the rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's probably a little bit pickier with the races she wants to do now, I imagine. But yeah, we were talking about that just recently, even with fathers, with children and just, all those sort of layers. Once you start thinking about that, I imagine it's very topical at the moment. I think just with crashing and putting yourself at that type of risk is just very, very difficult. Abby, you can speak on behalf of that piece, but yeah, I imagine it's something you need to push aside in that moment and just be totally focused on what you're doing. You can't come into too much of your thought because, then you will crash. It's,
The mental strength that you would need to have to do that is just,
It makes the social media amazing though. Like when,
that was
the
beautiful.
content when they watching their parents win.
Man, Ellen is really good at that.
From Ellen to Juliana Philippe to, it's just.
She's lifted her game on social media.
She's funny.
Yeah, no, Ellen is funny. She's dry. Her humor's dry as hell, but she's hilarious.
We have one more topic we got to talk about before we wrap up this episode, and that is the U.S. Nationals happened this weekend. The road race was won by Kristen Faulkner. Solo, she was off the front with Ruth Edwards, formerly winner of the Human Powered Health team, and then dropped her on the final climb and rode solo to the line, which was a bit of an FU to the situation that happened earlier in the week. The U.S. Olympic the USA Cycling Olympic, how they have decided to pick a rider. So I'm just going to sum it up like really as quickly as I can. The US only has 2 spots this year for 2 TT spots, 2 road spots. Normally, whoever does the TT does the road race and vice versa. Chloe Dygert is an automatic spot because of her win at the World Championships last year, and I think she'll do great things in the road race and the time trial. She'll also have an eye on the track, I believe. So she's the automatic spot for one of those, and they have one more spot up for grabs. Traditionally, the U.S. is always focused on the time trial versus the road race, so potentially a bit unsurprising that they decided that the second spot would be whoever won the time trial. And they maybe didn't anticipate an unknown rider coming in, unknown to cycling, coming in and winning the time trial and taking that Olympic spot, and that is Taylor Knibb, the triathlete she's already qualified for the triathlon at the Olympics, so she's like auto qualified there, and Matilda will be able to give us a little more info on her because yeah, all I know about her is that she was signed to Trek's World Tour team for a short period of time and didn't attend any team events with them. But yeah, for some reason, Trek signed her onto their World Tour team. Yeah, that was
Completely forgot
a
about
weird
that.
thing that happened.
I have lots of
She won the time
questions.
trial. I have so many questions too, Lauren.
I'm ready.
She won the time trial and was granted the automatic spot for the road race and TT at the Olympics. Kristen Faulkner finished second, and I think that's going to be a huge disappointment for her. Remember, Faulkner arbitrated the Tokyo selection because she believed she deserved to go to Tokyo, and she lost that arbitration. And now she's once again, one step off going to the Olympics in Paris because she was second behind someone who doesn't compete in the sport of cycling. So it's a bit of an interesting situation. I think there's on the one hand, it's incredible that Taylor Knibb will go to the Olympics for two different sports. And she's obviously a phenom on the triathlon side. On the other hand, for cycling purists who want to see the top women in the peloton compete at the Olympics, it's a bit of an odd situation. And USA Cycling hasn't really been clear about whether Taylor will be racing the TT and the road. In theory, that is the case, but the way the Olympic allotment of spots is laid out, there is also a possibility that Kristen could go for the track and race the road race. There's a mass amount of time between the two events that she would be able to do the road race and then do the track a week or so later. But it's a really weird situation that has been all over the Discord. It's been hilarious and everybody's got an opinion and I have an opinion, but the whole thing is just wild.
The only 2 cents I have is because the year of 2012, I was in an American team with lots of Americans competing for the spot in the time trial that year on my team. So my teammates were competing against each other. It was epic. And I believe the reason why that's an automatic spot for the time trial if you win the US championships, where I don't think this happens in any other country, that it's an automatic spot, right, without doing any other races in Europe, is because of Kristen Armstrong. She didn't want to do the races in Europe. And basically, I guess her coach was one of the selectors and someone who sat on the board and everything, and got the selection policy changed basically to suit Kristen. Okay, 3 times Olympic gold medalist. America has a history of winning gold in the time trial, but that's the reasoning behind that. And I haven't gone through all the comments on Discord, so I don't know if someone's already said this already. For those who aren't on Discord, that is my understanding of the reason why it stands the way it is and has continued to stand that way. And I guess Kristen used to coach Diet as well, so it kind of makes sense that she's carrying that baton on from the legacy of Kristen Armstrong. So it's a way for them basically to avoid racing in Europe. If we look at Australia as an example, if you win the time trial at nationals, that's good for your bid. But I think it's at the discretion of the selectors at the end of the day who gets to go. Because
most nations have it broken up into percentages. So you'll have 20% is coach's discretion, 20% is one day points in 2024, 20% is like all of your points throughout the last 2 seasons or something like that. So it's a lot of factors that go into it, and you can a solid result, a world tour win, something like that is almost like an automatic but that's completely different than the US national time trial that only has about 18 riders compete in the first place and is a very, very isolated event where the course at the US nationals is not even remotely similar to the Paris ITT course and will be a whole different ballgame. And when I was talking to my friend who's a DS about this whole situation, she pointed out the Canadian triathlete who won the Canadian National Championships last year and was hoping to qualify for Paris, went to the World Championships in Glasgow and just completely struggled with the course in Glasgow, how technical the TT course was, and completely fell apart. So it's a really fascinating situation, but it's also just like I'm so impressed with Taylor, and I think that I absolutely think she deserves the TT spot. Like, that's the way the rules are written. She should do the TT. But I also am just like so gutted for Kristen when it comes to the road race, because she legit has a chance at a medal. And it's like, don't we want the road race to be the most similar thing we get to a World Tour road race? And the Olympics is so freaking weird already with the tiny team sizes and the politics and everything, that it's just like kind of takes a lot away.
All right. You cyclists need to pipe down and let the triathlon correspondent step in here, please. This is my time. Finally,
yeah, go for it.
All of my triathlon consumption is finally going to pay off. No, I don't have that much. But just referring, that was Paula Finlay that you're referring to there with the Canadian TT. I think certainly still different realms though, Abby. Like, I think with Taylor Knibb, as you've said, like, super impressive. To bring it back to cycling, we're looking at probably a lot of Kopecky of the triathlon world that can do anything. So what's incredible, like, she is eating cake from everyone's plate. She is the only American female triathlete to have qualified, to have ticked all the boxes for the triathlon. One of the biggest talking point out of the Olympics is the American female selection, because none of them have ticked all the criteria that they ask for, even though they're some of the best in the world. Taylor Knibb's the only one. So she is going to the Olympics for the short course, for the triathlon, for the triathlon relay, and the time trial. I do not see her doing the road race as well. But coming back to that sort of, she's the Kopecky of the triathlon world. She did short course world champs last year, and then she got fourth at Hawaii Ironman just because she blew up in the run, but was pretty much leading the entire thing until that. Like, she's adding, like, we're watching potentially one in a generation for triathlon going from short course to Ironman. She is the number one cyclist in the triathlon world. But as we saw with Trek, so Trek signed her last year. It was a bit weird. It was a bit annoying as well, because we were like, Trek needed to sign more riders because they were like turning up to events with 4 people. There was no way she was ever going to do an event for that. She's doing the races at the moment called T100, which has $100,000 for first prize. You know, she's taking home $600,000, a year just from racing some of these events at the moment. So she's not going to turn up and be doing Vinda, that's for sure. But so that's like, and I think that was just seemed more of like a shared services piece, signing with Trek. She rides for Trek. She's still on the factory team with Trek. So anyway, I think the best thing we saw on the weekend was Faulkner winning the road race. I think we had to see that. And I think what you love is you want to see the top American or the top Australian in those national colours. And so I just can't fathom them not taking Faulkner for the road race, because the thing is, Nib, she's pretty blasé. She's incredible when you hear it in interviews. She wouldn't have been turning up going, I'm going to win this to then take the road spot. She just would have been turning up going, I want to race. That's what she does. When the World Tour Triathlon got called off in Abu Dhabi, she was trying to race 2 days later the T100 in America, and was trying to work out first class flights to see. She just loves racing. So I've never seen her in a road race. Then she didn't do the road race as well, which isn't, it probably could have been, if she'd won then the road race, a really good argument for her, but I just don't see how they can take her for the road race as well.
Problem isn't Taylor, like
spots.
Taylor did what she does. It's USAC's rules around picking the rider is a problem. And they're like, that there's a problem within USAC's spot decision when every single Olympics there's multiple arbitrations from riders. And I would be surprised if Faulkner didn't arbitrate again this year. I mean, she did it the last Olympics with a much lesser case, in my opinion, than this one. But I mean, the way that the spots on the Olympic side are set out, like, because Taylor's qualified for the triathlon, that doesn't mean anything. That's a completely different sport. So it's not like she can cross over to the road. Like, they're going to have to figure out taking a rider from the track discipline who does the road race, which is totally doable. They have Faulkner on the track. They also have Megan Jastrab going for one of those track spots. They could have either of those riders slot into the road race seamlessly. But one of the huge problems with this thing, and the road race in particular, because the time trial, like, she'll be great. I have no doubt about it. Maybe she wins. That would be such an incredible story. And I would write that story. But for when it comes to the road race, which already has a ton of problems, it's like the issues are, like the Olympic selection and allotment of spots, and the USAC and how USAC is going to do it, because at this point we have no idea what USAC is going to decide. They've not said anything about this, and so at the moment it's like pure speculation about what they're going to do with that second road spot and who is going to be able to fill that road spot. And they've not said anything about Taylor winning the second road spot, which includes the road race and the time trial. So there's like I have zero problem with Taylor rocking up and winning the TT. It's phenomenal. Like, that's amazing. She's clearly incredibly talented and strong and hardworking. It's more the uncertainty about how USAC is going to deal with the second road spot and filling that spot, and will they be able to take a track rider to fill that spot, because they've had that opportunity in the past and they've not done it. And so how are they going to handle this situation? Because I'm not going to lie, I've not been impressed with how they handle things like this in the past. And I think a lot of riders would agree. So that's where this gets a little bit more tricky. And I like 100% want to see Taylor race the time trial in Paris. I think she earned that spot.
Yeah. 100%.
For better or for worse, but she got it. It's more just like, how are we going to navigate this now with the road race? Because I want to see Kristen rock up to that road race. She's going to make it more fun to watch.
I think the only way
together
Kristen makes the team is if she gets in the track team, even if she's reserve or something.
She was named to the long list.
Yeah,
she's named to the long list, so it's totally an opportunity. Like, she still has an in. There's still a chance.
I don't know if all listeners understand how allotments work at the Olympics, so maybe it's just quickly to explain it just in like 1 minute how the allotments work. Like, so for the US only have 2 spots for road events. And because they've got 2 spots for the time trial, they're probably going to fulfill those spots. They always have multiple spots for the time trial. And previously, someone like Kristen Armstrong has then gone and done the road race, but has zero interest. Those road spots are in combination with the track spots. So that's why quite often a lot of these track endurance riders, like your Balsamos, your Alex Manleys, your Chloe Dygerts, they can swap in and out of the road race, actually. And that's why we're kind of having this discussion, is that I only see her ticket to the Olympics is if she gets on that track team. And you'll see what
includes the
Sorry, you go.
It includes the mountain bike as well. Like
yes, I forgot about that.
Spots. Yeah,
Yep.
like the cycling spot allotment is track, road, and mountain bike.
I think BMX is in there, but I mean,
Yeah,
the only
it
way
is.
BMX
It totally
could maybe
is.
translate is like track sprint, maybe. But that's a good point that you mentioned this, because I remember in 2016, I don't know if you remember this, Tils, for the men's race, I think the mountain biker, who there was a lot of controversy over the young guy who got the spot for the mountain biking.
Yeah.
He ended up doing the road race, and everyone was like, who is this guy?
I think it was the last Olympics. There was a Kiwi who did the mountain bike, who was a mountain biker, and they also put him in the road race so that they could have an extra spot on the track, and he basically pulled out after a K of the road race, which is just like really unfortunate for the road riders who fight for that spot, you know?
Yeah,
But that's the
That's
Olympics.
the Olympics.
That's how it works.
But I just don't think, even just from a logistics point of view, Abby, that she can actually even do the road race, having done the she's a silver medalist in the triathlon, a 2 times 70.3 world champion. Like, she's going all in on the triathlon gold. And so to do the triathlon, the mixed relay in the triathlon, the time trial, and then
Too
the
much.
road race. Yeah, it's incredible story. I just hope that surely USA Cycling will be trying to, what's going to be best for them to earn their medals in the road race. In just talking the road race, I think would be the biggest thing. Like, she's incredible athlete, I think, but and deserves that spot as we've made very clear. The issue is with USAC, and how they're going to do that. But even Lauren, it's still up in the air on what's happening with the Aussie team. You can see it coming.
Yeah.
There's going to be discussions, and I just don't know. I don't know what it is with cycling, but I wish our sport could be better, like similar to, I don't know, the marathon. I know the countries, say the UK marathon, they say, this is the race, this is the date, we take in the top 3, wherever you're up to, that's it, cross line.
That's like track and field though, right? As well. They've got to hit it's certain races, and then that's it. You perform on those days or you don't. Whereas again, it's also, like me mentioning before, at the coach's discretion. A whole panel will sit down and have a chat about different riders, and sometimes 2 riders could have almost exactly the same results, and then one rider will get picked over the other because of maybe a better relationship with certain people on the board, the panel, or it's tricky. I'm curious to see what they do with the women's road team. Of course, Grace is going, and she'll be a shoo-in for the win or podium at the Olympics in the time trial. I'm sure she'll have a great road race as well, but I can see them then taking, it will be the trackies, I guess, because we've got some really strong track riders that are also very good road riders.
But shouldn't Ruby get that, as like, she's not only the Australian champion, but she's also shown that when she's at her best, she, and I think with her working with Grace, like, I just think there should be more weight on the national jersey in an Olympic year. And if you go for that, you go for that. And yes, that means you sacrifice other races around that. But then also, if you do well in the spring classics or events around there, which she has still gotten some top 10s as the top Australian, that that's who should go. But anyway, it's all ahead of us.
Historically, actually, if you go back and look, I think most Olympic years, who wins the Aussie road jersey has gone to the Olympics for the women. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is correct, at least for the last 3 Olympics, because that person has gone on then to have a really great road season as well. But I agree with you. I'm curious. This is the first year, I think, in years that we've only had 3 spots instead of 4, because last year the Aussies just didn't quite have a good enough season to secure that 4th spot. So we'll see. I guess in the next few weeks, actually, there should be an announcement, because time is ticking.
Just as a final thing, GP Mazda, Lauren, is it Schleckens 1.1? Martina Finanza from Chiswick has won that race. I did that race last year. It's literally a camise that goes for 130 kilometers. Dara Pikalik came second, and Sarah Forian from UAE was third. So
she was a good pick.
Glad to be talking
Daria
to you guys.
Pikalik?
Yeah. She's I think when she gets a clear run at a finish line, she's up there with Weavers, I think. So yeah, Abby, it's been a long one. Loved it.
Let's wrap this bad boy up. Should we just really quick do obsessions?
Yeah.
Just the quickest of I look, I'm a newcomer to Bridgerton and I was a reluctant fan in the beginning, but I
bit of soft porn.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you want to get your juices flowing.
You know, it's really weird when you're watching Bridgerton, like, and your mom walks in and she's like, I love this show. And you're like, I
thought you were going to say your child. And I was like, no, close your eyes. Get back.
No,
way more awkward with
I
your
like
parents.
the new season. I like the friends to lovers versus like angst. It's I've been enjoying it.
It's like
Which
a gossip
season
girl.
They do a lot of they do
like,
so many good promo videos for this show too that I think it would be impossible like not to be interested in the show with all the promo that they do. But I mean, I didn't love the first season and the second season was a little bit better, and I think this one I'm finally liking it. So I don't know if it's an obsession, it's like a mild interest.
Most things I discuss, I'm not. Yeah, it's more mild interest. Some I'm obsessed about, but
if I was to talk about my obsessions every week, nobody would listen to this podcast anymore. I save it for the newsletter.
I'm a bit obsessed. Strong word. I don't know. With my bike, actually, I've been riding more this year. Granted, it's inside. Than I don't know, the past few years, I'd say. Particularly last year. And this morning I got all kitted up. I woke up early. My husband was going to watch the two kids. I was so excited to do my first 100 kilometers outside. I rolled down the road, had the wind behind me, tailwind to the group. And then my bike started making this god-awful sound in the head tube. And then I remembered my bike shop putting on Instagram the other day, like, if you've been riding your bike inside all winter, make sure you come in and have a service. So I think me, with my Rowney rain, as people in the peloton used to know it, I'm so sweaty that I don't know what I've done to my bike, but it basically stopped rolling, that I had to turn around after 2 kilometers and go home. And all I did was send my husband like a voice recording of the bike squeaking and crying and making this horrible sound.
Oh no.
And he got home and he just patted me on the back and he goes, I'm so sorry. And the bike went back on the trainer and I did Zwift again.
They're sort of been devastating. It sounds like you needed to have like a Zoom call just to try to organize to go out for a ride. It's a lot of logistics when you have children, I imagine.
Yeah, it's with 2 now, you really notice the difference. And, you know, with a little baby as well that's been breastfed, it makes it a little more complicated. Like, he does take breast milk. This is too much information in a bottle. However, if you do want to go for a long ride, do you stop and pump midway through the ride? And I'm going to have to figure that out because I'm going on a bike packing trip, which I can talk about next week.
I think that Lizzie Dagnan did do that.
She would pump on rides?
I think
stop?
So.
Yeah. Well, how else do you do it?
I'll fact check it. Yeah.
Fact check it. Get back to me. For those interested, I can start a whole new channel in Discord about breastfeeding and
just quickly, mine's also bike related, but I forgot to mention that our DS while we're here in Belgium is Valentina Scandalara. Just a shout out to
Very cool.
ex-rider Val, who's still
throwback.
super involved in the sport, running her own team and part of a rider agency, and just incredible energy and that sort of thing. Pretty wild driver, I imagine. But great to have the Italian here as well. But yeah, I'm obsessed with all the things that could go wrong with my bike at Unbound, which is my next event in 2 weeks. It's a 300-kilometer gravel race in the US.
Oh my gosh.
It's got 5,000 people. It's the biggest gravel event now in the USA.
in the world, I guess.
Yeah, definitely in the world.
Yeah.
But literally actual cycling event, it's the biggest in the USA, road or whatever, mountain, everything. So just the hundreds of things that could go wrong, the amount of money I've spent to try to make this, to get to the start line. I leave Europe next Tuesday, go to the middle of absolute nowhere in Kansas Emporia. And just trying to just buying things and different things. And what I'm scared of is I've got all these things, but I don't know how to use them. So I'm just like,
I think we need to have
tire
Tils
plugs,
back on
bacon
during that.
strip, derailleur hangers, tire boots. I know how to use the canister, so I've got that going for me. But so I'm a little bit obsessed with that, and obviously just Talia and I, the 18-year-old, have a term at the moment. We're just bashing through Belgium. That's just how you got to get through Belgium. Just bash through. So that's my obsession at the moment. But
we'll have you back on after. We want to hear if you figured out how to use everything, how it went.
Hopefully I don't have to use anything, but yeah, if I finish in daylight, that would be a bonus. But yeah, it would.
I think you just have to have a good run of luck, huh? In that race as well.
Yeah. But I think the biggest thing I've taken away from racing, which applies the utmost more so, and then anywhere else is in Belgium, is like you just got to be calm. Being calm is
roll with
just
the punches.
Yeah, you just got to stay calm. You make such better race decisions. You react so much better if you're relaxed and calm. So, that's been my goal the last few races. So that'll be the goal. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face, though. So we'll see.
That's true. That's true. It's a life motto. All right. Well, Tils, thanks so much for coming on the podcast this week. And we'll be back next week for a really, really special episode.